Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the XL Edge, providing small business leaders the edge on secure, scalable, affordable, and efficient technology solutions and topics. In today's fast-moving world, technology isn't just an IT concern, it's a business advantage. The XL Edge is the go-to podcast for non-technical CEOs, COOs, CFOs, other business leaders looking to understand and leverage technology without getting lost in all the technical jargon. Brought to you by XL.net, this podcast is really built on our core values here of believing in better, growing success, achieving it together, advancing security, and making it scalable. Each episode dives into topics such as AI, cybersecurity, automation, IT strategy, providing practical, real-world insights to help you stay ahead of the curve. Welcome to the XL Edge, where business leaders really take control of technology for smarter, safer, and more scalable success. Today, episode 1. It's our debut episode, our launch here at this podcast. We are talking, the title of the podcast is Cybersecurity for CEOs. What you don't know will in fact hurt you. In this debut episode, we're going to tackle a critical issue for small and mid-sized business leaders, the topic of cybersecurity. Many CEOs assume security is just an IT problem, but in today's digital landscape, cyber threats are really a business survival issue. We break down why SMBs are a primary target for us, and that's a counterintuitive to many thinking of why those SMBs are primary targets, and the biggest security blind spots, how you can a lack of preparedness can lead to devastating financial, reputational damage. More importantly, we're going to outline a few practical steps that CEOs, owners, presidents, other business leaders can take to protect their business without a real need for a technical background. My name is Tim Schmitt. I've been in technology for over 25 years. I have a degree in computer engineering. I have an MBA from CTO Academy in London. I've worked for startups, for family offices, family businesses, all the way up to Fortune 50, from programming, software development, to serving as a chief technology officer. Currently, I serve as head of sales and marketing here at XL.net. Today's episode's near and dear to my heart as a ISC squared certified information system security professional. My passion is really in IT security and in cyber resilience. I'm joined today by my co-host, Greg Pelekoudas. Greg's a 20-plus year technical sales executive veteran in the industry. Greg and I have worked together for many years across a few companies now. And as a classically trained vocalist, he's got a great podcast voice, I'm told, as well. How's it going, Greg?
Going good. I don't have any of the cool things you have, but I've got a really nice tie and some AirPods, so we're gonna just go with that.
I'm told that's all you need now. That's what the kids are saying.
Apparently a great singing voice, even though it's not gonna happen. But
our guest today is Mr. Tom Fowler. Tom serves as Chief Information Security Officer here at XL.net. He's responsible for security standards, security training, and other things that he'll probably enlighten us with for our entire organization. But really, he's also chiefly responsible for the security of more than 3,500 end users across our many clients. Tom, welcome to the show. And just first off, how do you sleep at night?
Some nights more soundly than others, that's for sure. Yeah, like Tim said, I'm Tom. I serve as the Chief Information Security Officer at XLNet. So that means that my primary accountabilities inside our organization are to essentially be responsible for the end users at XLNet, the systems that we use in order to deliver service to our clients, and also things like our client recoverability and our compliance with the various security frameworks and standards that we've chosen to comply with. We'll get into that a little bit later. But Tim, to answer your question, goodness, there are definitely some nights where it's easier than others. I think it's all about it's all about whether or not you can feel like the message is being communicated, right? That's the biggest thing in the MSP space. We're constantly looking to deliver on how can we help our clients advance their business and use technology to do that. And one of the pivotal ways that happens in the modern world is through security. And so, the quality of my sleep depends on, the recent quality of conversations that we get to have with our clients about, hey, let's break down security. Let's approach it from a business perspective. Let's see how we can get you guys from point A to point B, increase your security posture. It's tough sometimes. It's easier than others, but it's incredibly important. Yeah, it's a conversation that we got to keep having over and over.
So true. That's a perfect segue to to start this off. Actually, in fact, the conversations, right? The culture, those types of things that are required really for security to be effective, right? I think so often you've got people. There's so many tools and apps and standards and things like that. You're like, oh yeah, like we'll just install this, this new app or this antivirus or this new device we got, and that'll take care of things for us. So I think the first thing we were going to really talk about is why a CEO, why an owner, why a leadership team really needs to own the topic of and the importance of cybersecurity, IT security. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah. So the CEOs, I mean, among all of the things that they're responsible for, one of their chief responsibilities is to set a culture in an organization, and to forecast where the organization is going. And one of the ways that you do that is by understanding your risk landscape. Businesses are all about opportunities and risks. How can we make money? How can we not lose money? How can we, establish our product? How do we go to market? How do we make sure that we don't, crap the bed? And security is no different than that. It has to start from the top down because cybersecurity is a business risk. It's not just an IT issue. It's not something that you can point the IT nerds at and just say, "Hey, go fix this thing," and not have any insight from the top down part of the organization. Cybersecurity in the most mature organizations often is a board level discussion. It's included in business strategy meetings. You'll often see in C-suites chief information security officer or a CTO who's responsible for the security and the provision of the organization in that way. It's a culture thing, and it has to be. And the most successful companies who are able to best insulate themselves against the emerging threats in today's cybersecurity landscape are the ones who treat it as such.
Well said. Yeah. In organizations that don't have that top level, mentality and approach, what often happens, from your perspective?
They're reacting. I mean, that's most often it. Cyber threats aren't gonna stop and wait for you to have somebody who's ready to handle it. Cyber threats are happening all around you all the time, and that's not alarmist. That's just a statement of fact. And so occasionally you'll have companies who, if they don't have it prepared at the top, if the CEO treats the cybersecurity as something that they can kind of offload to a different department, or if it's an afterthought in the organization, you'll find yourself not being ready. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the sky is going to fall on day one or anything crazy like that, but it does mean that you're going to constantly be playing defense. And depending on how your business is structured, the product that you sell, that can have far-reaching consequences across your ability to execute on your mission.
Well said. If a CEO is listening right now, one of the things they may be worried about, or he or she, listen, I'm not technical, they may be, depending on their age, maybe they didn't grow up with computers, who knows, you've got the gambit, right? So, what do you say to one of them that's sort of scratching their head saying, I don't even know, I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah.
And how do they be sort of that beacon for, IT security and really set that tone and that culture without that level of understanding?
Yeah. So one of the best pieces of business advice that I've ever gotten, was if you're the leader, you ought not be the smartest person in the room. Um, that's just a priori true across business, and I think that it holds true in this aspect as well. As a CEO, you're probably really good at running your business, and if cybersecurity isn't something necessarily that you're educated on or good at, or have had any context in your past to dive deep into, then what you ought to do is find a partner. Whether that's an internal hire like a CISO or a security director, or partnering with a service provider like XLNet even. Surround yourself with people who can help bridge that gap for you. Because I can't sit here on a podcast and just list off, here's the 5 things that you can do to avoid being. I mean, that's so fraudulent. In reality, cybersecurity is a process. It's an ever-changing, evolving state of mind that an organization has to adopt in order to achieve the level of maturity where you can feel truly insulated and go about your business with confidence that you've done what you need to do to protect yourself. It's not checklist format. It's conversation format. It's roundtable. It's everything from tabletop exercises to finding perhaps a security framework that you can implement, to end user training, to deploying the proper tools. It's a holistic approach. It has to be a holistic approach if you want to really keep yourself safe.
Wow. We talked about building a culture of security. You've said many things surrounding that. What do you think are the sort of crucial aspects of a cyber resilient culture within an organization?
Well, it usually starts with understanding your risk landscape. And there's a couple of things that you can do at the top part of the organization to really establish that. If you don't have a risk register, build a risk register. Risk register is simply just a categorization where you list out just through either brainstorming sessions or reaction to issues, where you list out possible risks that your organization is facing, and you quantify them, typically with a dollar amount if it became an issue. That's a really great way to provide a visual of these are the current things that we're facing, and this is how we're treating them. And then you can either accept risks, mitigate them, transfer the risk to insurance companies, etc. Another thing that you can do that is great because it addresses the number one cybersecurity risk to any organization, which is their end users, is to have at least annual security training. If you don't have an information security policy, author one, hold people accountable to it at least annually, walk your users through that. Here at XLNet, we've made advancing security one of our core values. That's a great way to communicate to your entire company, hey, we're going to take this stuff seriously. We're going to make it one of the things that we identify around. All of those things, and there are many more that you can do to build a culture around security, is incredibly important. You want your users every day when they come in to understand that security is elemental to your organization, and that kind of culture starts at the top. It must start at the top because it trickles down.
I think Tim is frozen.
Are you guys seeing some choppy video? I was seeing choppy video on my end.
Edit. There he is. You froze up there for a second, Tim. We all got very scared. We lost you.
Is it just me, or are you guys seeing? Are you guys seeing frozen stuff on your end?
Tim freezes in the best possible positions. When I freeze, I got like half an eye open, and
he's very photogenic when he freezes.
Yeah.
You guys okay?
There it is.
It's just
now we are.
Not sure what's going to happen in that little segment there. I don't know if that was on my end or that was. Is it still real choppy?
No, we lost you again.
That's okay. I did one of these, so we'll know to edit that part right out because XL.net is not coming to you live yet. So still working out the kinks over here. We're not quite the Rogan podcast, but we're getting there. There, now he finally froze and looks like I would look if I froze.
Yeah, Tim, I'd hop maybe to a different network, man. Greg and I are pretty consistent here.
Yeah, you're freezing every 15 seconds here.
Okay.
You know, me and Tom will take the podcast a different direction. Like, so Avenged Sevenfold, Tom. Fuck music.
Pre or post rev.
There's only pre-rev. That's it. There's no such thing as post.
Except for the brief and shining moment where Portnoy stood on from, right?
Yeah, it doesn't count though.
Saw Dream Theater, by the way, their 40th anniversary tour this weekend.
Did you? I saw Dream
Awesome.
Theater for free, and it was an experience. I saw a lot of Dockers
Oh yeah, a lot of
in the
cargo
crowd.
shorts.
A lot of Dockers. Yeah, and yeah, it's kind of like when you go to see a Clutch concert. You
Yeah,
see a lot of Vans shoes and guys talking about what they're going to put on the Traeger this weekend.
that's absolutely it. Although, to their credit, Dream Theater is the only crowd I've ever been a part of that can successfully clap in 11/8 time.
Oh yeah.
They're actually pretty good at that.
Yeah, surprisingly, I think the most surprised I've ever been at any concert in my life was Polyphia. To see a
Oh yeah.
crowd singing the guitar parts was very
Oh, that's
strange to
cool.
me.
God, that's gotta annoy the
Yeah,
hell out of a
I
guitar player, though.
no, they love it. It was like seeing a combination of what it must have been like to see the Beatles,
Sure.
with all the screaming girls
Hmm.
because they all loved Tim,
Yeah, the
and
Beatles are the
uh,
only
and
ones that
then
experience screaming girls, obviously.
and a combination of like when you see the technical nerds that are just there to literally write down like time signatures and like
Yeah,
what he did there. Like now they have visuals on what he did for this song, and
that's awesome.
yeah, it's just a very strange mixture of people. But I don't have any concerts coming up until Meshuggah. Meshuggah's in April,
Nice.
which I think is a retirement party for me for concerts. I'm too old for it.
Oh, stop. Just get some
I
earplugs.
am. It's
Just get some earplugs.
I have earplugs. There's these, and it usually has yacht rock playing in it. Tim is just gone. He just
Yeah,
left. It's the Greg and Tom
we've
podcast. We'll
we've
talk about
we've
whatever you want.
yeah, we've gone so horribly
Actually, you
off
know
the
what? Can
rails.
I talk to you about something a little business wise? What is the email there for the guy I'm supposed to send this contract to?
Yeah, you betcha. Let me get that too.
Slack it over to me.
Yep,
Beautiful. Technology people. And it's Troy, right?
it's Terry. T E
Or
R R
no,
Y.
Terry. See, I'm joking.
Put it in reverse.
Terry,
Okay.
right? I'll have to hit up Noel to talk to him after this about potentially getting a blank SOW together.
Yeah.
He'll know what I'm talking about.
I really think that we should be sitting in the same room recording this locally.
I agree. I think
There's no reason
it would
not
be a
to.
cool look,
No
to be
reason
honest with
not to.
you.
I mean, that's why podcasts do that.
Yeah.
You guys hear me?
There he is. Yeah.
So you
Live and
guys
in HD now.
you guys stayed connected the entire time?
Yeah, no
No,
issues whatsoever.
Okay.
we're talking about music. We're talking about Dream
We got
Theater.
some great B-roll for you.
Let
Yeah.
me I'm kind of here in the lunchroom. Let me move. I wanted to see if maybe that room I was in wasn't getting good internet. I'm gonna go.
Yeah, you want to bury
That
yourself
room's
in a
anti-technology.
I've got the echo cancellation on, so hopefully that'll reject some of your audio.
Look at that.
I would be looking around for what he's doing, but I will not be caught in a compromising position on this silly recording. Because that's how you get turned into a meme.
Oh, yeah. That's my biggest fear in life. Honestly, I have a few fears in life. My biggest is being turned into a meme or just being out in public. And well, I like never want to act a fool anyway, but that's like me and my wife watch a lot of trash TV, me and
Hmm.
Michelle. And we always say that, like when you see these people like they're like in a pet store and like slaps a woman in the face or something, like I don't want to be that person. Like I don't want everyone to remember me as like, oh, Greg was the guy that was was too drunk to be in Walmart, so we had to carry him out. Like,
Yeah.
it's just
Also,
so I
if you
just try
go
to
through
act
your life
accordingly.
just generally not slapping people in public, it dramatically increases your chances of not
It's
getting caught
tough
on
though.
camera slapping somebody in public.
It's really tough. No, I'm just saying, like in general, like I don't know, man. It's what forced me to start living a better life. There it is. The Charlie Brown room is going to make this all better.
Beautiful.
Tim's
Dude, you've got the same hair. Oh, that's really good.
Oh my God.
Uh,
That's perfect too. Actually, we're gonna call this podcast "No Rain, No Flowers."
I'm gonna be the meme, aren't I? Um,
Yeah, no rain, no
It's possible.
flowers. You won't know.
I don't need to
No rain,
avoid
no.
being memeable. I just need to be faster than the slowest person in terms of memeability.
Yeah,
It's like, the bear's
that's
chasing
true.
you. I just need to make sure that my memeability is lower than or higher than lower than Tim's.
um, all right. Well, I completely lost track of where we were. We were talking about culture. We were talking about a number of things. I wrote down, you were talking about risk register, security policies, training.
You just asked for
Um,
just like some basic stuff that CEOs can do at the top level of the organization
yeah.
to help with that.
So, all right. So I'll just kind of segue back in here.
Reset.
Yeah. Welcome back, everyone. Change of scenery. We needed to mix it up a little bit. I was having some internet problems, so I'm in a different part of the building here. We were talking to Tom Fowler about cybersecurity and kind of the things that business leaders need to be thinking about. Tom, you mentioned a number of great things. Kind of thinking about. I asked the question around what are common things that kind of build a security culture within an organization. You talked about, you gave some simple examples of things that some business owners might start to think about, like a risk registry, making sure to start to craft an IT policy, a security policy. Training is huge and important. I think it's funny, I've been at some organizations where where they're like, yeah, we need all of our team to do the training. But guess who doesn't do the training? The executives. The top leadership doesn't do the training. What are your thoughts on that?
It's the same answer as before, right?
Yeah.
If you are the leader of your business, it is incumbent upon you to establish the culture. People, that silly phrase, speed of the leader, speed of the team, is, sometimes is eye roll inducing, but it's really true in situations like this. If you as a business leader or a leader within your company don't take cybersecurity seriously, how on earth can you expect your people to take it seriously? And you can cut cybersecurity out of that sentence and put almost anything in there, right? I mean, that's what's incumbent upon you as the leader of your business. If you take it seriously, your people will take it seriously because they're going to see you take it seriously. And so and people are smart and they're observant and they understand if they're being assigned something that's just a checkbox versus if they're being assigned something that's elemental to the organization. And that's the real difference. So there are a lot of companies that we work with that, oh yeah, we have our annual cybersecurity training because our cyber insurance carrier requires it, or because we're in an industry that has certain regulations and we've got to be PCI compliant or HIPAA compliant or whatever, and those are the checkbox things in there. But as you say, Tim, the leadership very often feels that they are too important, or they don't have enough time, or they don't take it seriously. They don't think that it's important or whatnot, while not really understanding that they, in a practical sense, they are actually the biggest targets for attackers, typically at their firms, specifically ones that are designed around social engineering or spear phishing, which we can define those terms in a bit. But more than that, like I just said, if they are seen as not taking it seriously, that mindset will trickle down to every aspect of the organization.
Yeah. Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree. I often would chuckle and just, to think I'm being asked to do this, cybersecurity training or, whatever the training might be. But then you've got the folks that are likely some of the biggest targets. You talk about spear phishing or, any of that type of stuff. Your CFO, your CEO, your COO, your executives that likely have the authority, the access necessary to do some real damage. So
Yeah.
I'm
It's
glad we
always the not
touched.
security minded CEOs that are also insist on having their, administrator accounts to things, even though
Uh,
they don't they don't
uh,
use them. They don't necessarily even really know what they do, but oh hey, it's my business. I should be the admin, right?
mhm.
Yeah.
That does take, you bring up a good point, that it does take a real kind of a mature leader to acknowledge and recognize that he or she shouldn't necessarily have day-to-day access to everything, right? I mean, if you need to have an account to be able to do that, to perform some duties or something, fine. But especially with a larger organization, we understand there are some companies out there where you're the owner of the company and you're probably doing many things.
Hmm.
But certainly when you get to a certain size, right, like really rely on the experts within your org. I love what you said earlier around the idea of a leader, of a CEO not being the smartest person in the room, in all aspects, right? That's a
Yeah.
dangerous place to be. So let's talk a little bit about some common mistakes, misconceptions, areas within this topic that are often kind of overlooked, and maybe some of the costs, the real world costs involved in that. Greg, you when we were talking about this show, you brought up right a misconception out there.
Yeah, I think the number one thing I hear on sales calls constantly, no matter what the size of the organization is, the complexity or what leadership looks like, is we're safe because we're in the cloud. I think I hear it more often than I hear anything else, and I think it's something that is a huge misconception, and something that I think needs to be. I think it needs to be broadcasted. That's a big misconception.
Tom, any what's your opinion on that? You often hear this idea of like, oh, I'm in the cloud. Like we don't need to worry about it. Or, well, we'll talk about this other one what I'll bring up as well, but let's focus on that. What are your thoughts on cloud versus on-prem and the differences there, if any?
Yeah, absolutely. I hear that of course, just being in operations here, if only we can get to the cloud, then surely we're going to be safer, right? As though the cloud is the lost city of Shangri-La, and we're all uh, we're all just characters in Hilton's novel. That's not necessarily how it goes. Um, the cloud you can think of as essentially two products, and this is an oversimplification, but it's a necessary one to not get bogged down in this. There's either the software as a service component of it, which is things like Office 365, SharePoint, right, where you have file level access to things, you're storing data in the cloud and you're accessing it through that cloud provider's interface, whatever that may be, right? Whether that's the SharePoint interface or Microsoft Teams or Google Drive or what have you. And then you have the product that's infrastructure as a service. So that's essentially you are hosting actual servers up in the cloud. So it's still a Windows server up there, and it's basically whatever you have on premise that's just running in a different physical location, but still walks like a duck, talks like a duck. Um, Security risks and considerations for both of those products are different, but the truth that unifies them is that you are still responsible for the security of your data. You're not offloading that security to your cloud provider. If you're using, door number one here, and you're a SharePoint customer, you're a Google Drive customer, you still have to make sure that you're securing your accounts properly. You still have to make sure that you're not allowing data to be exfiltrated, that you have good data prevention, like data leak prevention, DLP, so that people can't put compromising information in things like email and whatnot and linked to your cloud. The data is still accessible to you, which means that the data can still be accessed by somebody who is not you. And then the second option, door number two, you haven't offloaded any security consideration. You've just moved the physical location of your infrastructure. If you got Windows servers running in the cloud, you have all the same security concerns minus a couple physical ones. That's almost no different from running them in your office. If they're on the internet, if they're connected, if you have a way to communicate with those servers to upload and download information, to perform processing and whatnot, all of that's still a landscape that can be exploited and is exploited at the same frequency, statistically speaking, as infrastructure being local on site in your office.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of fascinating. I could see how it would be easy for people to assume that, if they move into AWS or they move into Azure or Google, or maybe they host their servers elsewhere, like you said, that they're like, wow, like we don't have to worry as much, that they'll take care of it. It's sort of the that kind of mob theory around, someone else will. If there's enough people in a room, right? They're like, oh, well, someone else will handle the emergency, or someone else will clearly take care of that, out of sight, out of mind, so to speak. And it couldn't be further from the truth. It's surprising to me, and I know, I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head, but I know there's been a number of security incidents, like publicized security incidents, where you've got large companies that have had their data exposed to other tenants of that same cloud or that same container, or that's, however it's sort of set up in that cloud environment. And in many cases, it's because they didn't properly configure security within that cloud environment to prevent that kind of access. In some cases, I think there's been some that are on the cloud provider, maybe something that they did that exposed it. But you're almost increasing the attack surface when you get into a larger cloud environment, and now you're hosted with thousands of other people and all the types of things like that. A lot can happen and go wrong. Am I out of line there when I?
No, not at all. It's readily Googleable. If you want to pull up situations where large companies, and really almost any time that you hear of a large company that gets breached, they're in typically a public cloud, just because the cost benefit of it at that level is much more favorable for larger businesses, of course. Not that it's not favorable for small businesses as well, but it scales for the big guys, just in a much clearer way. But yeah, it's the bottom line it boils down to is that you own your data, you own the transformation of the data, you own the storage of the data, you own the transmission of the data, because it's your data. In the same way that you own your car, and when you drive it down the street and you drive it past other cars and you interact with traffic signals and other various hazards on the road, you're responsible ultimately for getting your car from point A to point B safely, regardless of whether you're driving on a private road or a public road. The 2010 Camry can be broken into just as easily as the brand new Ferrari. Ferrari might go faster, it might be cooler, might be sexier, but you kiss the retaining wall. It's still going to be the it's still going to be the same kind of scrap metal at the end of the day, because ultimately the responsibility is on the driver. And in the context of your business and your data, where security is concerned, that's you. That's not the cloud provider. It's you.
Mm-hmm. Much like a car, right?
Let's keep going with the metaphor. I'm trying to teach Greg how to make metaphors here.
Much like Greg is Captain Metaphor.
Greg's got some great metaphors here.
He's Captain Metaphor. Much like the car, right? It requires its maintenance, its upkeep, and things like that. Can we talk a little bit about practical steps that maybe CEOs, business leaders could start to think about, or maybe even do today, right? To strengthen security, or to start to think about that and help build that cyber resilient organization. And then maybe we can touch upon, some of the longer term things as well.
Yeah, absolutely. First thing that I always say when I get asked this question is don't repeat work. There are a lot of frameworks out there, and there are best practices in this industry that exist for a reason. They've been developed over time, they've been peer reviewed. The industry as a whole has accepted, okay, these couple of things that you can do, they're a good idea universally. And a lot of times they're not very difficult. One of the easiest things that you can do for just a large scale, sorry, my computer's freaking out on me for a second. Give me just a moment here. We can cut this. There we go. That was my computer prompting me to reboot to install updates. Another best practice you can do is keep your stuff updated. um, sorry, let me go back. Yeah. So one of the best things that you can do as far as best practices is concerned is to adopt a framework. You don't have to go as crazy as ISO 27001, which is what we do at XLNet to create an information security management system. There are simpler ones that you can do. NIST cybersecurity framework is easy to understand. It's simple. The CIS controls provide some really good real-world practical steps that you can take. CMMC level 1 is a self-assessment that you can do that the U.S. government cosigns. So those are great things that you can do in the short term. Look those over. What that'll do is it'll just essentially spell out for you several controls that should be present in a cyber resilient organization. If you read through it and you don't understand it or you don't know how to implement it, that's where I go back to my original advice of find a partner. Find a partner that you can lean on to say, hey, I know this is a good idea. This is what the industry is saying is best practices. I listened to this awesome podcast. They said I should do this. Help me. That's a mark of a good leader is to ask for help if you need it. Help me implement this because I want to keep my organization safe. Mm-hmm. Some other things that you can do is if you create that risk register, is to then do gap analysis, right? You take that risk register and put it through the mindset of, okay, here's where we are, here's where we want to go. How do we get there? How do we close some of these risks? And from a more technical perspective, regular vulnerability tests, penetration tests, developing remediation plans, going through tabletop exercises, performing continuous vulnerability scanning, doing end user training, not as a checkbox, but as an earnest educational platform for your users to interact with. That and there's plenty more that we could just start listing out in bulleted format, but those are some of the big ones that come to mind.
Those are great suggestions. You mentioned tabletop. What does that mean?
Yeah, tabletop exercise is exactly as it sounds. It's where the security incident response team, that's a term that you'll hear a lot, CIRT, S-I-R-T. Basically, that's a predetermined list of people in the organization that are on call to respond to a cybersecurity incident if one takes place. Usually includes leadership and people who can actually put fingers on keyboards. But the security incident response team will gather together over a tabletop, and they will game out a situation. So somebody will typically propose a disaster scenario. So at XL, we do this quarterly in the security department. We also do it annually as a leadership team, and we talk about different things in those two meetings. But it can be anything from our primary line of business application has an availability incident. That means it's offline, it's gone, we can't access it. Or we're the victim of a ransomware attack, or our office has a water leak and we can't get into it. The only you can find the best tabletop exercises for your specific business context. Typically, you'll look at the risk register of risks that you've already identified, point to one and go, okay, this would really suck if this came true. Let's pretend this came true real quick so that we can then talk about it. And then you go through the risk. You say, okay, let's assign our premise is that this just happened. What are the first couple of things in the early hours of understanding this that are going to happen within our business? What do we expect? And then you start to talk about, well, okay, what are the things that we're going to need to do to fix it? If the line of business application goes down, do we have redundancy for that business? Do we have a vendor contact maybe that we can get involved? If it's an availability concern at the office, how remote can we be at the drop of a hat? And then at the end of the conversation, you go, okay, what are some key takeaways here? If we don't have a good contact at a vendor, if we're just dead in the water, if this line of business app, well, maybe try to establish a relationship as an output from that meeting. Or if it's an office concern, how remote can we be? If the answer is, oh, shoot, we can't really be all that remote at the drop of a hat, well, maybe then it's starting to think about ways, okay, if we need to, can we spin up a VPN so that we can get our users access to their work environment? Can we implement some screen sharing technology like ConnectWise or an RMM solution, so that if people had to work remotely in an emergency situation, we already have those tools in place now to where they can. All of that is what constitutes a good tabletop exercise. It's recognizing and choosing a disaster scenario. It's then going through and gaming out what it would look like, and then from that gaming out, let's figure out some ways that we can proactively implement stuff to mitigate the potential damage of that if it were to ever come true. And of course, you always hope that that's never going to come true, but fortune does tend to favor the prepared. That is an axiom that's usually pretty true. And this is a really easy way that you can make yourself as prepared as you can be.
Luck favors the prepared mind. It's one of my favorite quotes. Yeah. You said a lot there.
We're in business to make fortune. It's not luck. Come
on. Lots of good nuggets in that last segment. We'll make sure people have copied the transcript, and we'll probably break this up into some small bites, sound bites, and things like that.
Yeah,
so
totally.
thank you, Tom. That was awesome. Lots to think about. Lots I think for others to kind of dig in and think about on their own. You brought up the idea of talking to an MSP, managed services provider like XL. Mm-hmm. What is the role, in your opinion, and you're in this position, like what from our perspective, or maybe just in general, what is the role of an MSP in cybersecurity?
Yeah, the role of the MSP is to be your partner. It's to be the guy in the room that you can talk to when you don't understand this stuff, or when you read something or you see something and you need it broken down, or at the output of a tabletop exercise, if you need somebody to do that gap remediation, to implement the things, or if you need somebody to steer you through that conversation. The MSP's job is to come alongside you and work with you to help technology advance the cause of your business, to enable you to do your job better, faster, more efficiently, and also critically safer. And in choosing a good partner, there's a lot of different criteria. You want one that's 24/7, that has good security monitoring, that has incident response capabilities. You need to make sure that your MSP is following best practices. And you should find one, of course, that is accredited, which means that they've been audited by external registrars to do that. Like here at XLNet, we annually audit our ISO 27001 2022 standard for efficacy and to make sure that we're following it. We're also in the process of getting SOC 2 Type 2 certified. Both of those are external parties coming in, looking at our business from top to down and giving us the stamp of approval that we have, that we're conformed to those standards. And that's my primary responsibility here at XL. You also want to focus on, or rather you'd want an MSP that focuses on proactive approach. Anybody can react to an issue. There are plenty of MSPs out there that do that. You want to find one that can solve issues before they become problems, reduce issues before they ever show up. You want to focus on proactive security measures, regular patching, making sure your networks are segmented, leveraging threat intelligence to stay ahead of those emerging attack methods that are all over the place out there. And there are plenty of MSPs out there that require cybersecurity training for their users, because we're also a business, and we're subject to the same best practices that anybody else is. So those are some of the best things to look for in an MSP, and what you should expect from your MSP if you currently have one, as far as security is concerned.
Greg, we hear a lot about proactive, don't we?
Yeah, it's kind of it's oil and water in the IT world. A lot of people, I think probably the most common thing we hear is, oh, we already have proactive services. And, we have somebody monitoring our network. That's proactive, which is kind of like having a fire alarm, right? It's great. It's awesome. You have this smoke detector, but it's only going to go off when something's going wrong. So, the approach of having a fire marshal come on site once a month and make sure there won't be any fires happening in the first place is the better approach than just being happy that you have something that's going to let you know that something's on fire.
So true. Yeah. Yeah. The proactive is in our space, right, of managed services is almost it's not taboo, but it's gotten overplayed. I feel like anybody and everybody says they're proactive.
Yeah.
So it's really, I would encourage listeners to dig in there a little bit more and not just assume that when someone says, "Oh yeah, we're proactive," that like, what does that really mean? How do you go about being proactive? What are the things in place? As Greg said, if it's simply we're monitoring, that's not technically being proactive. You may monitor and receive some warnings that, hey, this computer's not feeling well, and so you get ahead of the failure, right, for the CEO's laptop or whatever, and you get it replaced. That feels proactive, but it's still, you're reacting to the things that are coming at you. What Tom really stressed and talked about is again, picking that framework, and then there's so many best practices. I think here at Excel we've got over 130 some best practices and industry standards that we are looking to both internally with our org, but also then trying to align our clients and advance our clients toward them. And that is truly being proactive, like really thinking, okay, how do we prevent these types of things from ever occurring, or at least, really drastically reduce the occurrence of it. Any other topics? Anybody? Questions, Greg? Things you can think of?
Yeah, actually, with shameless plug here for Tom, but your father wrote a book about something similar about what we're talking about today, correct?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Monty Fowler is a 30-year technologist. He's been a part of 7 different startups. He works for a fractional CXO collective right now, helping businesses take that next step and overcome challenges and become better versions of themselves. And he does also happen to be my dad. He's written a number of books. His first nonfiction book is called Executive Debt. It's basically about the cost of short-term decisions having long-term consequences. You've heard of probably tech debt and culture debt. The concept of executive debt, though, is kind of is broader. And cybersecurity is absolutely one of those ways that you can that you can shortchange yourself by putting band-aids on problems instead of seeking real solutions. And making short-term decisions that just gets us by for right now because we either don't want to allocate the correct funds to this, or we don't want to spend the time, or we just don't want to be bothered sometimes. Because proactive, like you said, Tim, it's a hard conversation to have sometimes because proactive is spending time, spending money, investing in something that isn't real yet, right? It's forecasting, and that's sometimes a harder conversation to have, or a harder mindset as a business leader to put yourself in to understand that is still relevant and still necessary. But when we make short-term decisions from a place of reaction, or because we just don't want to be bothered with something that we consider to be a lower priority or have a lower likelihood of happening, we can slowly start to accrue that kind of executive debt that ultimately is what can and does kill companies. And so, yeah, my dad wrote a book about it. He's transforming it into a Vistage presentation and
Cool.
a couple of other workshops and whatnot. But yeah, it's an excellent resource. It's a quick read, but it's a really, really great resource for business leaders to just understand that hidden cost in doing business and provide some real practical ways to prevent it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Would you
Well,
say that?
yeah.
Would you say that a lot of that executive debt comes from another misconception of the words. I don't know if you guys have heard this a lot. I've heard it as well, which is overkill. Oh, that's overkill. That's overkill for me. That's overkill for us.
Mm.
Sort of this idea that you have a lock on the door. It's good enough.
Hmm.
Yeah, that
Hmm.
$5 lock is protecting how much stuff in your house?
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah. I come from the lock on the door, the second lock on the door, the vault, the security system, and better safe than sorry, right? But I think that's it's there's this that misconception too as well that kind of coincides with the very idea that your father wrote a book about, which is just sort of, yeah, we'll be okay. It hasn't happened yet,
yeah.
so
And
we're okay.
I mean, there's a real quick and easy question you can ask, if you're thinking about, oh my gosh, how much is this going to cost to protect this asset? Well, how much is it going to cost you if you lose it?
Hmm.
Yeah, that's a
Simple.
great way to look at
I
it. Yeah,
mean,
absolutely.
that's the bottom line of it, if you're debating the cost of protecting the thing, just think of it in terms of if this thing got stolen from me tomorrow, if it got locked up with a ransomware attack, if it got exfiltrated and now my trade secret is on the open market, what's that going to cost you?
Absolutely. Yeah, very well said.
Yeah, the importance of sitting down with a team and performing that risk analysis, the risk registry you talked about. What's the impact, right, of this? If we were to lose, our internet, if we were to have our data compromised, what's the impact to the business financially? And then what's the likelihood that would happen or could happen? And there's no exact science, I mean, anything you do is better than nothing. So sitting down, sort of sketching that out, and that's something you can continue to work on and refine and improve. And with the help of, say, an MSP like Excel, probably sharpen up quite a bit. And
Yeah.
then that informs, right? Like you said, that informs, okay, well, what are the things, do we want to focus on the thing that doesn't have a ton of impact and is very unlikely to happen? Or should we focus on the things that have a high likelihood of happening? And that's
Yep.
where, again, you might need some advisement from professionals to say, there's some blind spots that you're not aware of, because of the way you're set up or the way that your policies are set or the sort of habits you're in, et cetera, that can expose you.
Yeah.
Here, as as an MSP, like we're a real target, right? Because we sit at the center of, as I said earlier, like 3,500 end users are relying on Excel to be their IT department and to provide that level of security. So that's why I think I opened up with, like, how do you sleep at night? I mean, it's just
Yeah.
it's a
Well,
lot
it's
to be
true.
responsible for. But
Getting hacked through your MSP is not an unheard of thing. That's for real. Because as you say, we're kind of the honeypot, right? If one of our critical systems gets fully and completely compromised, well, just by nature of the business that we're in and the work that we do, we have access to our client systems. That's required for us to be able to function as your MSP. There's no getting around that. And so the onus is on us, you know, to practice what we preach, to put our money where our mouth is, quite literally. We are a good MSP, a security focused MSP, is one of the best partners that you can have for cybersecurity, because I don't care what you do in your business. We have a lot of security ramifications if we get hacked. We go out of business. I mean, that's the bottom line, very, very commonly. Um, and so as an MSP who is security focused, who understands that we are a potential attack vector for all of our clients, sometimes all at once if the right system gets compromised, we have to constantly be on our A game where security is concerned. We have to not just check the box for user training. We've got to take it seriously. Our leadership has to set the culture for cybersecurity. We have to have a risk register. We have to look at it quite a bit. We have to, the educated guesswork that is just elemental to making a risk register. It has to be educated. We've got to go through the tabletops. We've got to think one step ahead, two steps ahead of the people who are, who are trying to make money exploiting businesses. It's front of mind all the time in our business, and it has to be. That's why we're still in business. That's why we're successful. And that's the duty of care that we have when we ask people to trust us with their, to be their IT partner. That's incumbent upon us to take it seriously. And so just by nature of all of that, a security-minded MSP is a great partner, because a lot of the questions that you may have as a business leader, or a lot of the next steps that you want to take, odds are we've taken them and we've answered them. As your partner, we're happy to help you get to the next step, because ultimately that makes everybody involved in that relationship sleep a little bit better at night.
Wow. Very well said. We've talked a lot about MSPs. We've talked a lot about, our own company, Excel. Let me take a minute just for listeners that might be wondering who we are, what we do, just share with you a little bit about Excel. We are a leading IT managed services provider focused on small to mid-sized businesses from 15 to 150 technology users. We have pillars of excellence in vertical industries such as manufacturing, financial services, healthcare, professional services, just to name a few. Excel has been in business for 15 years. It's privately owned by Adam Radulovich, an IT professional with over 25 years of experience. Collectively, I think Excel, across all of our employees, we have well over 150 years of technology experience and 70 related IT certifications. And if there are two things you remember about Excel that really make us unique, it's that we perform comprehensive audits for our clients each and every month. One of our dedicated system analysts within the organization and that department spend an entire 8-hour working day at each of our client sites. They're checking the environment across those 130 plus best practices and industry standards against a framework or several frameworks, the best of those worlds, as Tom mentioned. Those system analysts work in tandem with technology officers assigned, or fractional CIOs, CTOs, to build annual technology roadmaps and alignment plans to really improve our clients' posture and their environments. Secondly, we're the only Chicagoland MSP with that ISO 27001 and SOC 2 Type 2 certification that's focused on small to mid-sized companies. There are others out there that have that, but usually they run, up into the enterprise space. We've made it accessible and affordable for small to mid-sized companies to have that as well, because, as we said earlier, they are often some of the most vulnerable. It's really those two unique aspects of Excel that drive common IT headaches and issues down by upwards of 80%. And what we find is that results in a 7 to 10% of your payroll expense kind of dropping back into the bottom line for you in terms of profitability due to that productivity gain, the efficiencies, and even employee morale and culture improvements. We've got the data to prove it, so we'd be happy to share it. If you'd like more information on Excel.net, please visit our website at www.xl.net. You can also reach out to me directly, or Greg. We'll have our emails and contact information in the show notes, or connect with us on LinkedIn. Links and information will be provided. Thank you to Tom Fowler, our fearless and awesome Chief Information Security Officer here at Excel. And thank you for listening to the Excel Edge, where business leaders take better control of their technology for smarter, safer, and more scalable success. Be well.
Bye, guys.
Wait, sign off?
Yeah.
Awesome.